There was one lake that everybody says is super haunted. All the people that went camping there,
Yeah.
they said the lake hugs you and tries to take you down.
Oh,
Yo, it's crazy.
I am rich, I think rich, I feel rich, I act rich, wealth feels easy. Wealth comes so naturally, money mindset, no space for limiting beliefs. I manifest so effortlessly, I never reset, no space for limiting beliefs. I manifest so effortlessly. I am rich, I think rich, I feel rich, I act rich, wealth feels easy. Wealth comes so naturally, money mindset, no.
I just read a Lake Superior ghost story and I need to share it with you right now. My uncle used to work on board the Great Lakes freighter, the SS Arthur M. Anderson, and they would haul iron ore and limestone across the Great Lakes. One day at around 7 p.m., November 2007, they were crossing Lake Superior on their way to Cleveland, Ohio, when they started receiving distress calls on their radio from an unknown vessel claiming to be the SS Edmund Fitzgerald. He said at first they all thought it was some kind of distasteful prank, until they checked the radar and found that there were no other ships around for at least 70 nautical miles, and the range on the radios are only 60 nautical miles. He said that the voice they heard from the radio described a heavy storm and high winds, and they were having a hard time holding their own. My uncle said you could hear true fear in the man's voice from over the radio. But the thing was, there was no storm at all. In fact, the water was calm and the night was clear. And at around 8 p.m., the distress calls on the radio came to an abrupt stop, leaving the whole room in a terrifying silence. There is a sense of irony in this event, being that not only was the ship my uncle was on the sister ship to the Edmund Fitzgerald, but it was also the last ship to make contact with the Edmund Fitzgerald in 1975 when she sank. I have no words. None.
Stowe Lake in the Golden Gate Park in San Francisco, California is said to be haunted by the ghost of the White Lady. Legend says this is the spirit of a woman who died trying to save her drowned child. She is said to wander the edges of the lake looking for her child. It is said that if you call out, "White lady, white lady, white lady, I have your baby," 3 times, that she will come out. But if you do this and you do not have her baby, she will haunt you for the rest of your life. If you tell her that you don't have her baby after summoning her, it is said that she will drag you back to the lake and drown you, making you suffer the same watery death she did.
One of the really bizarre and haunting mysteries of Washington State takes place out on the Olympic Peninsula, right here at Lake Crescent. Lake Crescent is a mysterious location. Not only is it the home to a series of automobile fatalities that still remain on the bottom of the lake, but the lake itself can be up to 1,000 feet deep. Its most notable mystery, though, comes from 1937 when a local waitress working at the tavern there disappeared. Haley Illingworth vanished in the middle of the night and nobody knew where she went. Several years went by until eventually a mysterious body of a woman drifted up onto the surface of the lake. One of the things that made it truly remarkable is that local authorities said that the flesh could be scooped away like soap. Due to a dental implant, they have finally identified the body and remains as that of Haley Illingworth. It was determined that her husband had murdered her, bound the body together, and dropped it to the bottom of Lake Crescent, where the minerals in the water reacted with the fat in her body in a process called saponification to essentially turn her into soap. When the bindings on her rotted away, the body floated back up to the surface where she was discovered, and the mystery was eventually solved. Her husband only serves 9 years for this crime after he's convicted, and the story of Haley continues to haunt the lake. Multiple divers have said that when they're going down to examine one of the multiple car wrecks down on the bottom of the lake, that they'll see a woman swimming towards them.
Grace Brown was the daughter of a farmer and a factory worker. She lived in Cortland, New York. and worked at the Gillette skirt factory. And that's where the beautiful Grace met Chester Gillette, who was the nephew of the Gillette skirt factory owner. Now, Chester was a well-known womanizer, but this did not discourage Grace from taking up with him. In 1906, Grace became pregnant, and it being those days where a woman could lose all of her future prospects from such a scandal, she tried to convince Charles to marry her. And Chester, being the horrible person that he was, told Grace that he needed to think about it, and then she was sent away to her family farm. And of course, Chester was using his thinking time to see other women. Shocking. So Grace went back to town and once again tried to convince Chester to marry her. So obviously Chester came from money and was considered a catch. So getting married to a farm girl who worked in his family's factory was not his ideal marital match. But Chester finally relented and told Grace that they would elope together to the Adirondacks. But that was not his true intention. On July 11th, 1906, the couple were at Big Moose Lake. They rented a rowboat and paddled out onto the lake on a beautiful summer morning and never returned. Robert Morrison, who had rented the boat out to the young couple, sent out a search party when they did not return. They eventually found the boat overturned in the water, and then they found Grace Brown's body, and she had been brutally beaten to death. And Chester Gillette, being the prime suspect, was on the run, hiding out in hotels under different names. But it did not take long for authorities to catch up to him, and he was arrested just a few days after Grace's murder. Grace's murder and the subsequent trial that followed afterward became sensationalized. People from all over were coming to witness Chester Gillette's trial. Now, Chester claimed his innocence throughout the trial, trying to convince people that Grace purposefully jumped into the lake, and that when Chester stood up on the boat to try to jump in after her, that the boat capsized. But the evidence clearly showed that Chester hit Grace on the head repeatedly with a tennis racket that he brought with him, and then pushed her into the water and let her drown. On December 5th, 1906, the jury found Chester Gillette guilty of murder, and he was sentenced to death. He spent his remaining years in Auburn Prison, where he was executed by electric chair on March 30th, 1908. Now, to this day, on the shore of Big Moose Lake, stands a marker where Grace was found, and of course, over time, people have claimed to see the spirit of Grace in this spot. People have become afraid to camp around this area because of all the strange phenomena that happens there. There are even more disturbing accounts of witnesses claiming to see a girl drowning in the lake, only to go out there and find that no one's there. Others have claimed to see Grace wandering around the shore and even entering buildings nearby and extinguishing all the lights within them, as if she just wants to be left alone in the dark with her grief.
Avocado Lake in Fresno, California is said to be super haunted. The unusual number of drownings that happen in this lake probably fuel these legends. But according to legend, it is said that there is a giant monster inside the lake that pulls you down to your death. Aside from the monster inside the lake, there's also been accounts of Bigfoot sightings in Avocado Lake. The following is a story from a pair of friends that were there in 2014. One guy said that he was attempting to swim across the lake, and he got to about the middle of the lake, and he says that he felt a pair of hairy arms wrapping around both of his legs, and then he started to be pulled under. And this is from 2016, but there was two friends walking. They were gonna have like a picnic there, I don't know, but they were walking, they sat on the shore, and then they looked across and they saw what looked like a human hand, a hairy human hand, just pull out of the lake. It was covered in like dark hair. It extended like 3 feet over the surface. I don't know. If you've been to this lake, what have you seen?
Want to hear a story? The story's going to take us to Pyramid Lake, Nevada. Pyramid Lake is part of the Pyramid Lake Paiute Tribe Reservation, and the lake and the area around it is considered sacred. It's named Pyramid Lake because of the pyramid-shaped tufa formation in the water, a type of limestone. This pyramid is so cool. The first thing I noticed the first time I looked at it was a face up at the top, right? But watch this. Boom, big face. It looks like its eyes even have eyeballs. Anyway, this area has been home to the Paiute tribe for pretty much forever, though the Shoshone tribes and the Washoe tribes also fish from the lake. Tribal history says that the Washoe was actually given special fishing privileges because they helped the Paiute defeat a nearby tribe of giants. This is a fantastic fishing spot. There are fish in this lake that reach impressive sizes. And the tribe does allow public fishing here, and people come from all over to fish and participate in fishing tournaments here. Though the north and east sides of the lake have been closed to the public and non-tribal members since 2011 due to the desecration of sacred sites. And shame on whoever did that. Though the fishing is great and people love the tournaments, without fail, almost every spring, someone drowns in the lake. It is also very beautiful and full of very unusual stone formations, one being the Stone Mother. The Stone Mother resembles a hooded woman sitting next to an open basket. She is the first mother, the mother of all mothers, and her tale is the tale of creation. It's said that when the world was young, the first father roamed the world. He had a good heart and a kind soul, but he was alone and he was lonely. And the spirits of the earth whispered of the man. These whispers reached woman. At the time, woman was married to Bear, and Bear was very jealous of woman's longing to find man. They fought, and woman killed the bear with a club. She then left her home and traveled north to find man, and faced many dangers and had many adventures on her way. Once she fought a giant, and when she killed him, his body turned to stone and can still be seen today at a place called Yarrington. After many days, she finally arrived at the mountain where man lived and noticed him walking along the water. He was very handsome and she was afraid of him, and so she hid until he ran across her tracks and began calling out for her. When she finally revealed herself, man greeted her with acceptance and kindness. They later married and had many children together. But the children fought often, and one day the father gathered them all together and told them that if they could not stop their fighting, that he would have to separate them. But before he was even done talking, they were fighting again. He was very angry and told them that they had to be separated and that he was returning to his home in the sky because he could not bear their quarreling. He then separated his children. He sent one boy and one girl south and one boy and one girl north. The others he instructed to stay and to care for their mother. These children became the Paiute tribe. The father then left, first up to his mountain and then up to the sky. And the mother was full of grief. She worried for her exiled children and told them that on their journey each night to light a fire so that she knew that they were well. And each night she waited, watching the darkness for their signal. Each night a fire in the south would appear and she would rejoice, knowing those children were safe. But no fire in the north appeared and her fear and worry grew. On the fourth night she waited, when still no fire had appeared in the north, she began to weep. She cried and cried for her children until her heart grew colder with every tear that fell, till the mother had turned to stone, sitting beside a pool of her tears. This pool of tears we now call Pyramid Lake, and there she still sits where she watched and waited for her children's fires. It is said that the deepness of the lake reflects the deepness of her grief. She's so beautiful, and I just love her. This lake is also considered just as dangerous as it is beautiful, not because of the Stone Mother or her children, but a different kind of children. The water babies. Legend says that in ancient times, babies that were born sick or premature or too weak to survive would be thrown into the lake and that their ghosts became angry, vengeful spirits. It's said that these water babies are responsible for many of the drownings on the lake. They're blamed for disappearances and bad luck and all manner of calamity. And at dawn and dusk, the crying of babies and laughter of children rings across the water. That's creepy. It's even said that sometimes infant-sized footprints can be found in the wet sand of the shore. And the water babies are believed to be the most active in the spring, which, not coincidentally, is also when most people drown. Completely different legend claims that the lake is cursed by a mermaid. In the years before the first white man appeared, a Paiute man fell in love with a mermaid, and she loved him back, so she left her underwater palace to be with him. But when the man returned with her to his tribe, he insulted the mermaid and called her ugly and told the man that he had to return her to the water. So before they left, the mermaid cursed Pyramid Lake, and it became the home of monsters and bad luck. It's even said that the Paiute War, which was a series of battles fought between the Paiute tribe and settlers, was a result of the mermaid's curse. There's also a variation of the water babies legend that kind of hooks in with the mermaid legend. It says that one day that two sisters were washing clothes in the lake, and one had left her baby laying in a nearby shaded place. And while they were washing, a great serpent rose from the water, ate the baby, and then took its form. When the baby began to cry, the mother came to feed it, and the baby started to eat her. Her sister ran for the medicine man, who made a deal with the serpent in order to save the young mother. If the serpent let her go and let her be returned to health, then this demon would be free to inhabit the lake forevermore. And the serpent took that deal. So it's said that the water babies are not the ghosts of abandoned infants, but the serpent demon in infant form. Others say that this serpent is really the mermaid herself, taking vengeance for her betrayal. And while all of these legends are haunting, the dangers of the water in Pyramid Lake is very real. There are underwater caves and tunnels in its depths that create dangerous cross currents, and the still water can become choppy and turbulent very quickly. The lake also sometimes experiences toxic algae blooms, which actually closed the lake last year. I'm actually not sure if it's been reopened to the public yet. Another very strange phenomenon here is the connection of Pyramid Lake to Lake Tahoe. Tahoe does feed into Pyramid Lake, and sometimes people that have drowned in Lake Tahoe will end up at Pyramid Lake, which makes sense. But even stranger, that sometimes people that have drowned in Pyramid Lake will end up in Lake Tahoe, but Pyramid Lake has no outlet. So how these bodies travel back to Lake Tahoe is a mystery. There may be some type of underwater tunnels that connect the two, but others say it's monsters dragging those drowned bodies back and forth. As much as these legends all talk about the bad luck associated with the lake and how dangerous it is not considered a place of evil, but it is considered a place that must be respected. Have any of y'all ever been to Pyramid Lake, and how was your experience? Let me know.
Can you please talk about Nevada urban legends? I got you. Let's talk about the haunted water babies from Nevada. Also, TikTok's green screen is not working, so I'm going to improvise. These creepy things right here are the Pyramid Lake water babies. This is Pyramid Lake specifically. As you can see, it looks just like a pyramid, and this area is said to be extremely haunted. These water babies will mimic the sound of crying babies to lure people in to try to help them. And when they get close, they snatch them up and the people are never to be seen again. The way this curse came about is theorized in two different ways. One theory states that the tribe that lived around this area threw malformed babies into the lake to preserve the strength of the tribe. The other theory associated with this legend says that a tribesman fell in love with a mermaid, brought her back to the village, and they didn't accept her. Because they didn't accept her, she cursed the entire area. And with the curse came these dangerous spirits of the water babies that would lure people into the water and end them. So if you're in Nevada and you hear crying around a body of water, double check that. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section below, or what you want to see next.
Have you ever heard of the Cambodian urban legend of the Forbidden Lake? The Forbidden Lake is a mysterious and captivating element in Cambodian folklore. It refers to a lake that is believed to be cursed or associated with supernatural forces. The lake is said to be forbidden, and people are cautioned against swimming or entering its waters due to the dire consequences that may befall those who disregard the warnings. According to legend, the Forbidden Lake is often believed to be home to malevolent spirits, guardian entities, or mystical creatures that can bring harm to those who come into contact with the water. The lake is shrouded in an aura of mystery and fear, and locals tend to avoid it out of respect for the supernatural beliefs associated with it. Tales surrounding the Forbidden Lake often involve stories of individuals who have ventured into the lake and experienced unfortunate events, such as illness, accidents, or even disappearance. It is said that the lake holds a powerful and dangerous energy that can disrupt the natural order or disturb the spirits dwelling within its depths. The Forbidden Lake serves as a cautionary tale, reminding people to respect the boundaries set by folklore and to be mindful of the potential dangers that lie in certain places. It reflects the belief in the presence of supernatural forces and the need to acknowledge and honor them to maintain personal safety and spiritual harmony.
This is the most haunted theme park in America, Lake Shawnee in West Virginia. This place is haunted by thousands of ghosts. So Lake Shawnee is a massive abandoned amusement park with a very dark and very disturbing past. Long before the amusement park was ever constructed, a tragedy already occurred on the land. You see, in 1775, a settler named Mitchell Clay made his claim right there on that property. Only a few years later though, 2 of his children were murdered by indigenous peoples. But a third child of Mitchell's, named Ezekiel, was captured, he was brought to Ohio, and he was burned at the stake. I mean, look at it. It even says right there on the historical plaque. You can't make this up. All 3 of those kids' bodies are buried over here in the park property. Now, when Lake Shawnee was first established, people just kept dying. There were so many accidents in the park that it began to gather a haunted or cursed reputation. For example, a child was killed right here on this old abandoned swing set while the swing was in operation. Obviously, there was a drowning or 2 in this lake, and over here in this lake, I heard a story from the owner when I visited that a child was pulled under the water, supposedly by some sort of phantom force. After the child went under the water, the parents searched, they couldn't find their child, but eventually, a while later, they felt something brush against their leg under the water, and it was their child's body. But why could this place be so cursed, you ask? Well, right next to the property is a mass grave for indigenous peoples where over 3,000 bodies are suspected to be buried. I'm talking about the park's right here, and just over here is where this huge burial plot is. And people think that obviously if they were all buried right there, some of those bodies may have moved in this direction. Over the years, people have experienced all sorts of paranormal activity here, the most terrifying kind of all. People have seen children sliding down the slides, riding the rides. People have seen figures riding the old Ferris wheel, waving at them, shadow figures that disappear. People have heard the sounds of giggling, heard children's voices, adult voices, and people have even seen eerie creatures and other shadow forms in these woods that surround the park. There's even more history that I'm missing out on here, but if you want to watch the full documentary that I shot there where we stayed overnight, just head to my YouTube channel. It was one of the craziest nights of my life. We had the entire amusement park to ourselves, and we caught some crazy paranormal activity on camera while we were there. Let me know below, would you spend the night here alone?
Yes, hello, it's October 1st. Do you know what that means? It's Spooky Lake Month, where we're doing 31 days of haunted hydrology. And today I want to talk about the morbid history of Lake Tahoe. This iconic lake is tucked in the mountains between California and Nevada. It's one of the oldest and deepest lakes in North America. Frigid temperatures below the surface hover around 39 degrees Fahrenheit. For comparison, they keep mortuaries between 34 and 39 degrees Fahrenheit to prevent decomposition, which is how Lake Tahoe has a reputation for holding on to its dead. It's estimated that the remains of some 200 people could reside at the bottom of the lake. This supposed mass graveyard has been dubbed the Tahoe Dance Floor, which is a morbid title to say the least. But cold, freshwater lakes can preserve their dead for an incredibly long period of time. The frigid environment would suppress bacteria that causes putrefaction and gases that build up in bodies, causing them to float to the surface. In one case, a diver disappeared in 1994, only to be discovered 17 years later in almost perfect condition. His name was Donald Windecker, and he was last seen by his diving partner as he disappeared into the depths of Lake Tahoe with his mouthpiece removed. He wasn't seen again until 2011 when a group of divers came across his corpse precariously balanced on an underwater shelf 265 feet below the surface. The shelf overlooked a 1,000-foot drop, so any disturbances could have resulted in his body being lost forever. His wetsuit kept his body intact, but dental records were required to confirm his identity. 4 other divers are still missing from that same area, which is infamous for swallowing its victims. Lake Tahoe's icy underwater cemetery is 7 out of 10 spookies.
There was one lake that everybody says is super haunted. All the people that went camping there, they said the lake hugs you and tries to take you down. Oh, yo, it's crazy. So in the 1950s, like the people that lived there were trying to evacuate everyone and pour water on it because they wanted to make it into a lake, right? Yeah. So everybody's pissed off. Like they didn't want it to make it to a lake. Everybody had to evacuate. They left the buildings. They left the cars. There's still cars underneath the lake, right? If you go camping there and you're a parent of a child, usually at night you'll hear like the kid go out of the tent and walk towards the water. Yeah. All of them are sleepwalking. When they get woken up, they're like, why are you going there? The kid is saying to the parent, somebody told me to go under. No. Yeah, and try to hear voices? Yeah, you hear voices, and even though you're not a sleepwalker, you'll end up sleepwalking. Some people sleepwalk ended up drowning from that. Because the people are trying to tell them, calm down. Crazy. Yeah, that's crazy. Crazy. You know, Usher's ex-wife's son died there because of a boat collision.
I'm the reason you should not come to Idaho Lake. Hello, stranger. My name is Earl, one of the lost souls of Silver Lake. Several decades ago, the town of Silverwood thrived near the shores of this lake, north of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. One fateful night, a sudden storm capsized several boats, claiming the lives of many who were unprepared. The disaster unfolded quickly, leaving no chance for escape or rescue. The townspeople could only watch in horror as their loved ones were swallowed by the icy depths, and with no bodies recovered, the lake became a grave. Some believe we vanished, our spirits dissolved in the water, but others know we lingered, transformed into something eerie. We are bound to the lake, our fates entwined with its waves. We moan with the winds, but if you hear our whispers, do not come closer. There is no aid you can offer. We will ensnare you with our cold, wet hands, dragging you to share our watery tomb forever.